The Home Buyers Hour on 20, where the facts matter. And it's going to be the three of us again talking about real estate on here. So in the studio with me, I got Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. Patrick, give an introduction, please.
Good morning. Hey.
Oh my gosh.
I am Patrick Loftus. I am a real estate lawyer. It's important, real estate lawyer. I am with Loftus Law, and because it's 2023 and it's long overdue, I'm growing my social media presence.
Nice.
This is something I heard people say all the time. Find me on Instagram and follow me, Loftus, L-O-F like Frank, T like Tom, U-S like Sam, _law at Loftus _law. Find me on TikTok, although it has been so glitchy the last couple, 3, 4, 5 days, at Loftus Law.
Nice. And Joey, give us the rundown. Who are you? Which, by the way, I gotta say is still my favorite handle, signal, whatever they're called nowadays. The VA loan nerd. I just love that.
Should I be the real estate law nerd?
Then I would be the home inspector nerd. One of the two. So, amen to that. So, one of my competitors, and I like him, it's Home Inspection Geeks. So before I met him and got to know him, I always looked at that name. It was kind of geeky, you know. I was like, why would you do this? But after getting to know him, he really does enjoy what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. My name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I'm the owner of Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is www.thehomeinspectors, that's plural, O-R-S, and it's a .com. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And without a doubt, I could say we're one of, if not the highest rated home inspection company in the entire Chicagoland area. No lies. And we've got a person listening in from Arizona. This is a gentleman that served on the ASHI board with me many, many moons ago for a national organization. So we'll give a little hello to Brick and go from there. Other than that, Patrick, we were talking about some contract stuff the other time. And I think you mentioned paragraph 7. Is that the right number?
Indeed. So if we're talking about the multi-board 7.0, which is the name that we all use for the contract form most commonly used by real estate brokers here in the Chicago area, paragraph 7 would be the mortgage contingency. Now the mortgage contingency is going to be important for a buyer because it allows the buyer to terminate the contract without losing their earnest money if they're not approved for their loan. Now, for a seller, you might think, well, why would I want that in the contract? And really the answer is that it would scare a lot of buyers not to have that sort of provision in a contract. And moreover, it has become more or less taken for granted, so to speak, that this is something that's going to be in contracts. Now, real estate contracts for residential purchases and sales. Now, the good news for sellers is that it is extraordinarily rare that a buyer does not qualify for their loan. And it's really down to people like Joey who, before the contracts even entered into, is making sure that buyers are qualified. It's really to no one's advantage to have people running around entering into contracts that they have no possibility of fulfilling. So it's more geared toward protecting people in the case that let's say there's an unforeseen job loss and they're not able to to sort that out. We've talked about that before, where there are some ways if they can get employment quickly after losing that job unexpectedly or so on, to be able to make that work even if they've got a problem. But again, it's people like Joey who are making sure that the mortgage contingency is something that is rarely invoked. Joey,
over there.
I don't know. We got some technological difficulties. Joey,
No one can hear me, it sounds like.
I can hear you. So
Well, no,
Joey.
I mean, on the stream, but yes. So, Joey, I'll stop interrupting you.
Oh, I see. So I'm talking to myself. Excellent. This is finally
The show we was waiting
This is
for.
what I have been waiting for. The
All
part
Patrick,
where
all the
nobody
time.
is going to interrupt me. Usually I have to wait until I get on Instagram after this, and I call it the HomeBuyer's Hour after show, where I get to have the final word, which I find very enjoyable, quite frankly. And
Well, that was a problem on my end. I didn't have a plug-in for Joey, but now he's able to be heard. I got it all figured out.
I'll introduce myself when Patrick passes over to me. It'll be okay.
Did I vamp long enough?
Oh, that's all you did. You did perfect.
Hey, guys! On the line, we've got the Joey Mathews with the Federal Home, Federal.
No, but seriously, Joey, what is that whole process of, what's the difference between a pre-approval and, I know you use the term pre-guarantees, but, there's another term as well, isn't there?
Yeah, the prequel, and just because I'm sure I have to say it again, Joey Mathews, NMLS 1330694. Yeah, so pre-approval is a lender who actually collects docs, reviews docs, runs credit, runs automated underwriting for Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and if you are a USDA buyer, which you may not be, in the Chicagoland area, I doubt there's many. I don't even know what would qualify as USDA in the Collar County areas. Anyway, that's the GUS system.
There is a box to
underwriting.
check on the multi-board form for USDA, so it must happen enough that they felt it worthy of inclusion. So you've got the box for conventional, the box for FHA, box for VA, and then box for USDA. I don't think I've seen a USDA loan before. But if you're opening up a pumpkin patch, you might be going USDA. I don't know.
I was going to say that's the Department of Agriculture. That's probably farmland, right?
Yes.
Most-
I'm
yeah,
ignorant on loans. I'm not afraid to say it. I don't know anything about these things, so this is a learning experience for me.
It doesn't only have to be farmland. It could just be in a rural area, a single-family home in a rural area. I've done a few. They're different. They're definitely different. Very tight on debt ratio qualification. Your front-end ratio can't be above 34%. Like, it's wild. It's wild.
Now hold up. Your front-end ratio.
Front-end ratio,
You
meaning
sound like
Just for housing.
So tell what is a front-end ratio and why does it matter?
So a front-end ratio is your debt ratio for your housing payment. So you take your housing payment, divide it out by your gross monthly income, and that is what your front-end ratio is. The back-end ratio includes all your other debts on top of it.
Okay, so as I understand it, I think the rule of thumb is you don't want to be spending more than 33% of is it of gross or net? I don't recall.
Gross.
On your housing costs. So when you talk about front end ratio, that's essentially what you're talking about is that it's tied to the same concept as that rule of thumb.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And USDA is 1,000% the most strict on those things. I actually ran into one. A couple got married. They were good to go. They were pre-approved. They were pre-guaranteed by me, right? They got married during the process, not a big deal, but then they dropped all of their gifts into their bank account. And there's another rule that the USDA has where if you have the ability to put 20% down, you can't go USDA. You got to go conventional or FHA or whatever. So that came up very late in the game. I had to flip the entire thing from USDA to conventional, which, I mean, it hurt their rate. It is what it is. They still only put 3% down. Even though they had the ability to put 20% down because now they had all their wedding gifts. And it was painful. It was painful. But they closed and they were happy and all those good things. Anyway, a mortgage contingent. Yep, continue, sir.
No, it just goes back to more, knowledge is power. And the more you know, the more you're worth, right? And, I don't know, we play, there's a lot of people that go out there and buy houses, and I hear the old horror stories that you go through the whole pre-approval process or pre-qualified process, and I do want to know the difference between those two.
Yeah.
But you go through that whole process, you buy the house, you go through, the home inspection, the attorney review, everything else, you get to the 11th hour, and then all of a sudden you go out and buy a new car, and you get this $1,000 mortgage payment, and then all of a sudden you don't qualify. And it's like, I don't know. It's what do we expect people to know up front, or what do we need to be educating our clients, before they go through that whole process?
Yeah, so, and this is, realtors and lenders always do this, and I see attorneys do it too. Like, they'll put it in their email signatures even, like in big, bold, red letters, right? Where they're telling people, hey, you are under contract to buy a home. This is the biggest debt you're ever going to take on.
Yeah.
Please do not open new credit cards. Do not save the 10% at Macy's. Do not go buy a car, right? And honestly, most of the time, it's really not a big deal. It really isn't. It leads to some paperwork that we have to add. But at the end of the day, do you really want the additional hassle that, I got that 10% off and now I have 3 days to wait before we can do a credit supplement to add this account and all that goofy stuff, right? And that can push a mortgage contingency. If they open the account right before the contingency expires, I know I'm pushing, because now I have to get evidence of repayment for this account. I have to get the paperwork, and then I have to do a credit supplement with the credit bureaus to add the account to the report. It's a hassle. It's a hassle. And definitely don't do it the morning of closing to go buy a bunch of furniture. I've had that happen. They go buy a bunch of furniture. I get what's called a undisclosed debt notification on my email that says, hey, there's a new, $6,000 card on this account with a $6,000 balance, and the new payment on it is $300. I'm like, hey, we're not closing today, guys. Sorry, you opened a new credit card on the way to closing this morning.
Is that the norm? I mean, is that the norm where you check it, and how soon before they close?
It's not even us checking it. We have a system set up where as soon as we see a new account, or as soon as the credit bureau see a new account, they send the notification directly to us. We get the report first thing in the morning.
Is that every mortgage broker, or is that just you?
Everywhere. Wow. Everywhere.
So I wanted to that sparked a question on my part, because I started seeing, and this is specific to a certain down arrow mortgage company. Did I do that right? Where I don't know, maybe.
Oh, that's great.
maybe 2-3 years ago, I started seeing a charge for an undisclosed debt report, and I'm like, undisclosed debt. Where do they even come up with, like? Is there a database of debt that has not been, reported to the credit bureaus? Like, what is undisclosed debt? And now you're giving me sort of an answer as to what this is. So they charge for it, by the way. I didn't realize that all lenders are involved with this, and now that annoys me that they've decided that they're gonna ding you. It varies the cost, but it's anywhere between $30 and $60, and it's not nothing.
What do you mean they charge for it? They charge a lender, or they charge a client?
They charge the buyer. So it'll be one of the line items on the debit side of the buyer's figures. So you would get
it should just go under their credit report fee, because it's a charge that is automatically attached to the credit report, because as soon as you pull credit, you are also adding the undisclosed debt reporting system. It should just be a single charge, but
there was talk about doing away with that whole credit system or reporting system, and I don't know what they would go to see if somebody's a good debt or not.
Yeah, it's controversial, right? Because for many reasons, that we could just derail this and make the whole show about credit scores and credit reporting.
It's a big deal.
It is. Without credit scores, and let me just, without endorsing one side or the other as to whether they're good or bad, but the system that credit scores replaced, as far as qualifying for a loan, the system that was in place before was basically, you walk into a bank, and if the banker feels good about you, you get a loan. If they don't feel good about you, you're not going to get that loan. Now, you can imagine, for all the criticism and the the biases that are baked into a system like credit scores, it's at least an improvement on the one where I walk in, and whatever impression I give to the banker is going to be the deciding factor. That's not ideal for so many reasons. But yeah, there definitely, I don't think it would be a controversial take to say that improvements are absolutely possible to the current system that we have, despite it being an improvement over the previous.
Yeah,
Joey?
I know that. Well, no, I know. credit report costs are triple what they were 2 years ago, right? So they are trying to find new ways to cut that cost because it's insane. It used to be like, I think it was like $32 for a credit report. Now they're charging in some cases like $120. Like it's an insane amount of cost that they are passing on, right? So I know that we now have the ability to run automated underwriting on soft pulls. I'm wondering where that goes from here, but it's definitely new. There's a lot of changes going on, and I hope we can get away from the system that is, I mean, triple the cost to run credit. That's crazy. It's crazy.
What does that mean, soft pull?
Soft pull, it does not show up on your credit report as an inquiry. So we get a snapshot of your credit with the same information we get from a hard pull.
Okay.
But it does not show up as an inquiry that you are going to get a new mortgage, right? So you don't have to deal. We don't have to deal with the cost because a soft pull doesn't cost what a hard pull costs. I don't even know the cost because they don't tell me what the cost is. It's super cheap though. A hard pull is going to show up as an inquiry on your credit report for the next 120 days, right? Generally required for pre-approvals. They are allowing us to pre-approve with soft pulls now because the reports, whenever you pull a soft pull and hard pull, at least anecdotally, we've been doing this for like 6 months now. There has been no difference between the two reports. So they have given us the ability to start issuing pre-approvals off soft pulls. But yeah, it's crazy how much cost has moved up just for credit reports, and so yeah, I know they're trying to find new systems to make it more economical for people buying homes.
So if somebody's out there shopping for a mortgage, is it common that they reach out to a couple different mortgage brokers and try to do price shopping, or is
Absolutely.
it more? It is. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to say it's common. But it's a good idea, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
Same with all of our professions. I think it's a good idea. You should always, check out other attorneys and other home inspectors as well. And
I disagree.
Find someone who's going to be a good fit with you. And obviously you're smiling, so that's good that you are joking on that one. So am I? Maybe he's not smiling anymore. Who knows?
That's a grin.
But doesn't it, what do you do, I guess, if somebody's coming to you, they're looking and they want to know rates, do you go with the soft pull first and then wait till they're a client and then it's a hard pull?
I'm always a soft pull. I'm always a soft pull
Always.
first.
Okay.
Yeah. Because again, it's not going to show up as an inquiry. The thing with hard pulls is once you've had a hard pull, then you've opened your window for shopping. The CFPB allows for 30 days of shopping.
Okay.
So
Yeah, you only get dinged once.
Correct. But you may over time see a different score reporting to the different companies because everyone who's reporting your credit to the bureaus may have different reporting dates, right? So if you miss a payment mid-month, you may see a lower score come back from, Joe Schmo Mortgage than you saw earlier in the month, right? So if you get it pulled same day, then you're going to see the same score from different companies, right? But yeah, you have 30 days to do your window shopping, and then outside of that 30-day window would be a new hard pull inquiry where you see the ding on your credit again.
Now, let me ask you this. I have heard, and you can confirm, or maybe you can tell me I heard this from the wrong sources, but there are some mortgage brokers who would prefer to do that hard pull to get the clock going on that 30 days so that they could then leverage that to say to someone who's maybe on the fence about using them or whatever. They're not moving as quickly as they otherwise ought to be in that mortgage broker's opinion. That hard pull can give them a little bit of leverage to lock someone in with them as opposed to casually shopping around.
Just listening to that, I don't like the sound of it. It sounds like manipulation.
It is.
There's definitely people that do that. So if you were pre-approved 60 days ago and now you got a contract and now you want to shop rate, that's going to be new hard pull.
Well, don't you have to get permission from somebody
to pull credit?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, but that's what I'm saying. If you're shopping rate, there's going to be a new hard pull.
Yeah, and when you say
because you're outside of that 30-day window.
When they're not going to call you and ask you, do I have your permission for a hard pull? They're going to send you an email to click a link to sign something that has a
Nobody ever
95-page
reads those.
terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Of course they don't. I read somewhere that if all of us read all the terms and conditions of all of the things that we click yes on, it would take something like 1,000 years or something crazy like that. So, it doesn't. You can be the cleverest lawyer out there and write the best terms and conditions ever, and when it comes down to it, if you get someone on the stand and say, "Did you click yes on this?" Yeah, I did click yes on this. Did you read the 1,000-page document?
No.
Absolutely not. I would never
Yeah.
use the product I clicked yes on. It would be obsolete by the time I finished reading that. Okay, all right. Yeah, so where are you going with that? It's window dressing to me. I'm sure plenty of other lawyers would argue with me, but I get into a lot of arguments with lawyers, so that's not new.
I had another business owner talk to me about something. He used the phrase, if my lawyer is so good, he could protect me right out of business. And I kind of like that. We do have to roll the dice. We do have to take some risk, when we do this sort of stuff.
You got to do the thing.
And then we can't always be safe, and that's, kind of my beef on our end. But, because everybody wants to.
Overly cautious, right? If you're afraid of every single thing that could possibly happen, you'll never get out of bed.
No.
No,
we wouldn't be taking showers, and we have one smelly crowd. That's for sure that comes in there. So again, Joey, tell me the difference about pre-qualified and pre-approved.
That's where I was going to go.
Sorry.
I didn't know if we were going to go back off track, but my next thing was going to be, and a pre-qual is just when you run credit and don't collect docs. So
Okay.
Pre-qualification, and this is notorious for big boxes. They will take your credit pull. They will take whatever stated information you put in the system. So that $700,000 that you accidentally input into your assets, that $70,000 a month that you make that you thought you were being asked your annual income, they will pre-approve you off of that. So if you put any errors in there and pre-qualify. If you put any errors into the system while you were putting in your income, your assets, all those things, that's what your pre-qualification is based off. And I've seen it happen when people put their information in and they put $70,000 a month that they make. And I look at their W-2, I was like, oh, whoops, they make $70,000 a year. So I adjust that. But if you're not verifying with docs, you don't know any better, and you're issuing a pre-qual that is a bunch of phooey.
Yeah, I mean, and people, they have all sorts of ideas of what constitutes income. If someone's expecting, for example, an end of year bonus that is going to be, a certain amount, and they include that in their annual income, and then lo and behold, the bonus doesn't come through because of one reason or another. You could definitely be over optimistic, get yourself pre-qualified at something that you honestly won't be able to afford. And it's going to end up, like so often happens, unfortunately, that a lot of people are going to do a lot of work, and then we're going to get to the moment of truth, and there's going to be something that absolutely is standing in the way that could have been dealt with much earlier in the process.
When does that moment of truth actually happen?
Well, in this context, unfortunately, it's quite late in the game.
Really?
Well, sure. So if you're operating strictly on a pre-qualification, and let's just assume that pre-qualification is unrealistic to the point that it is not possible to afford the purchase, you won't probably find out until at the very earliest it's gone through underwriting, which is after the contract, after the inspection. So you're not going to be applying for the loan until after the contract's entered into. So you've got a buyer and a seller tied into it. You've got two real estate brokers. You're going to have a lawyer involved. They're going to engage someone like you. So I keep going down the line of all the people
there's a lot
involved.
of money being spent.
And we're not even considering the fact that each of these people might have staffs. They might have. So there's a lot of people. There's even the buyer will have family members. So let's say at best you might go through and get into underwriting with the documents that should have been collected, and a pre-qualification.
It's not easy to say. I get it.
Anyways, Yeah, we're talking 2 to 4 weeks into a transaction that all of a sudden it's like, nope, this one's not going to happen. Now, fortunately, that is a rare occurrence. I don't know too many mortgage brokers who are going to get that far down the line and suddenly find out, whoops, I should have done more work on the front end on this one, because I think you only need to get burned on that sort of thing one time before you go.
Joey, give
not
me your
again.
timeline on there. How does the process go with you?
With pre-approvals?
Or qualify,
Are you talking
whatever.
about- yeah, okay. So it's all about the borrower, right? How quick is the borrower? Because if the borrower is quick, I can be quick. But if the borrower takes time to get things to me, then, I mean, at the end of the day, once you have what I need into the system, then we're looking at like 2 hours. I actually hired a new assistant in Hawaii for the sole purpose of the after hours pre-approvals, where she is 5 hours behind everyone else. So if you're doing this at 9 p.m., which most people do, they do their pre-approvals late at night, right?
Yeah, after work.
Yeah, I have someone who is still on the clock who is issuing pre-approvals at that time. So yeah, it's within an hour or two is the goal. But if it's 1 a.m, then yeah, next morning you'll see if we have a pre-approval for you.
I guess what I'm saying is, somebody talks to you before they even go house shopping, don't they?
No. Well, yeah.
Again, I'm naive. I want to know.
No, I know. So
There's the way it
depends
should go, and then there's the way that things
It goes.
can happen.
Well, but if
Yeah.
I'm a real estate agent, and I'm not, but if I was,
If you're a professional real estate agent, start with professional.
that's a good point, because there's good and bad in everything in every profession. So, but if I'm a professional real estate agent, I think I'm going to want to have all these things pre-done. I don't want to, not only to be selfish, I don't want to go through all that headaches and hassles for myself, but I don't want to put my client through all that. That's not going to build a good rapport for me if I let them jump through all these hoops and spend all this money and show them all these houses, and then all of a sudden they can't qualify and we got to start over again. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, look, you have to take into consideration there's no official set process for how to go about buying a house, right? I mean, we know what the steps are supposed to be. We know what order they ought to be in, but that's not necessarily how people organize themselves. If there was like a handbook that everyone got and it said, okay, first get a pre-approval from someone like Joey. Next step, go, take a look at the market, see where you want to be looking, how much you want to spend based on the pre-approval. Great, go out, look, make an offer. After you make the offer, contact 3 inspectors, 3 lawyers, and
It's a lot of work, yeah.
Right. So I think that it's tempting, especially for someone that perhaps hasn't been burned on that, or maybe they're not sort of thinking farther ahead than I want to go look at house. That's the fun part, right? Until it's not fun anymore. But
Right.
yeah, you go and I don't think probably most of us at some point, just on a lazy Saturday, you go, oh, I wonder what's available out in this area, and you get on Zillow and you kind of fantasize a little bit, or I know.
I look all the time.
So I was gonna say, Charlie, I know you have your homestead up in Wilmette that you love, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be looking for a lake house up in Lake Geneva.
Oh my God, you've been looking at my computer. That's exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah. So and what is because you do a radio program every week and you're intimately involved in this business, you would call Joey. I mean, you literally have a guy that you get together with on a weekly basis.
That I trust.
Exactly. And so that would put you in a very small minority of people who have that team sort of already locked in. So yeah, I mean, what's the next thing when you see this? Oh yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna go look at it. Then you go look at it, and all of a sudden you love it, and you want to get it locked in, and now you're under contract, and you're like, well, I think I can afford it. And so, yeah, there's the way it ought to go, and then there's the way that either life gets in the way, or I suppose if we want to take the more cynical approach, there's plenty of people in this business who don't have really a good process, and they just sort of fly by the seat of their pants, and they, all right, this happened.
Processes are so important.
Well, it certainly when you have a workflow or a
More
process,
checklist.
it's
Yeah.
going to allow you to operate at a higher level instead of having to reinvent that process every single time you do it. Is the way I see things. But yeah, so I wrestled that answer to that question away from Joey as I so love to do. So yeah, I mean, Joey, when that happens, let's take the example of the lake house in Lake Geneva that somebody went in and just whoops, I found myself under contract. What does that look like from your end when all of a sudden you're coming at it from behind because someone is approaching you after that all happened over the weekend?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons this will happen too is open house where they're not asking for pre-approvals at the door, right? Which it almost never happens, I would imagine.
Not these days, but it could in a softer market.
Yeah. So I'm not afraid of a difficult conversation because no matter what, good news, bad news, any news is good news in my eyes, right? So I'll talk to them. I'll be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Is there anything that I'm missing? Okay. There's nothing that I'm missing. You can't buy this house. I'm just telling you. At the end of the day, they have to know, right? I'm not going to lead them on and be like, oh, yeah, well, if we lose 3% in the market, then you have a chance, because that's not going to happen. In the next 30 days, that's not going to happen. I can talk to them, though, about, and I'll present this, in different ways, but do you have someone who could co-sign with you? Do you have? I go through options, but again, if I exhaust all options, I'm just like, here's where we're going to look. We know that you're motivated to buy, obviously, because you just saw this house. You got to start looking at properties like this price point and under, and you got to make sure you're looking at tax bills, and that's more important in Illinois, just because taxes can vary so widely depending on where you're at.
That's so true.
In Chicago, I mean, everyone says Chicago's taxes are terrible, and compared to Homer Glen, New Lenox, I mean, it's a pittance.
Yeah.
A $400,000 house in Chicago, you're looking at maybe like $4,000, $5,000, and then if you go to New Lenox, that same house, $400,000, you're looking at like a $14,000 a year tax bill. It's crazy.
That was me when I was in Will County. Absolutely, I had a super high tax bill out there.
Go out to Palatine. Yep. The worst is where. I forget which townships, but the southwest part of Cook County, I mean, you can have a $12,000 tax bill on a $150,000 house. It is
Ouch.
It is madness.
Yeah, I know a
I
lot of the
specifically
Country
mentioned
Club
Homer
Hills.
Glen.
Country
Oh,
Club.
no, yeah. Oh, R. Kelly's house. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about R. Kelly.
Yeah, it would take us down a dark path.
They must not have a lot of commercial or something in there, because that's the only reason why the homeowners would get such a big bill.
Well, yes. Also,
You're choosing
lawsuits?
words.
well, yeah. I mean, look, there is. I'm just going to say it, racism. So
Yeah. It's a horrible thing. Yeah.
It is, and that is a significant contributing factor to why that part of Cook County has such high real estate taxes.
I just don't understand, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that'll take us on a very different path than the one we're on. But basically, yeah, it's, you think about if you look at, and this isn't going to work on the radio, but the rate that commercial properties in Cook County have increased in their tax bills as opposed to residential properties, those timelines don't match up, and that's because people who own commercial properties tend to be sophisticated enough to hire people like our former House Speaker, not the.
No, I know what you're talking about. People that appeal to tax bills.
Right. So that's part of it. The fact that there is not a commercial base to contribute like there is in other areas. Why is that? Why aren't there, the kinds of businesses that, the robust, the manufacturing, the other things? It ties back into a lot of different things. Why are there so many areas of this city that have, very homogeneous ethnical makeups? It goes back to the redlining that happened.
You're going back years.
In the third, well, the scars remain.
They always will.
And until something can be done to promote more investment in the communities that have been have been, what's the word?
Devastated, I
Yeah.
think. Once they become depressed, then all of a sudden it takes a lot of money to go ahead and fix them up and make them worthwhile. And then when you get too much money, you're chasing people away. I'm sorry, but money is part of the math problem.
Well, I mean, that's what it all boils down to is money in a sense, and also prejudice. But and the current assessor, again, I'm going into a totally different area. The current assessor, you will have probably had conversations with people who own commercial real estate in the northern suburbs. I believe it was 3-4 years ago. The last time they got reassessed, they got really dinged, and the reason is because their assessments were a lot lower than they should have been. Now it's hard to absorb that as someone who's running a business based on the numbers as they were, having really no broader idea or sense that my real estate taxes are lower than they ought to be, and so I'm getting a bit of a windfall. All of a sudden, you introduce a more equitable assessment, and now all these people, their businesses don't work. They've got to raise rent, and that introduces its own set of problems. And so there are no easy answers. I'm sitting here talking from a perspective of I can identify problems. I can see what their origins likely are, but I want to make it clear, if I had the solutions, I'd be in someone's ear going, this is what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
You pull one lever and, it has effects in other parts of, and affects other people. And, when it comes down to it, it's easy to talk about things broadly, but when you talk to an individual about what's going on with them, it's a different conversation, because all of a sudden compassion comes into it. You're not just talking numbers and history.
And again, we keep learning. Hopefully we keep changing. I just had a conversation yesterday about the way I was raised and the things I said, and my God, I look back at my younger self and I didn't like me. It was unbelievable. And now it's like the more education we get, the more accepting and understanding we're going to become. But I do want to get back onto this authorization and qualification stuff here. No,
I'd like to go around the horn one time, right?
Yeah. Joey, why don't you start? Start us off, Joey.
Okay, well, since I said it, Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd at the Federal Savings Bank, right of the frontline team over there. You could call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd.
Thank you, Joey. And Patrick, please.
It's a good thing we are on a progressive talk station. Otherwise, I would have been escorted out of the building by now. If you want to interact with me in my capacity as a real estate lawyer, I would appreciate that. You can keep the politics over in another section. Follow me on Instagram at Loftus_law. You can follow me on TikTok at LoftusLaw. Be nice.
I love it. And my name is Charlie Bellefontaine with Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is www.thehomeinspectors. I always got to squeeze out that S in there, and that's a .com. My phone number is 312-544-9180. And if you're interested in joining and becoming a home inspector, we also own Home Inspection University, and it's HIUIL, so Home Inspection University of Illinois.com. So,
Wait,
Joey,
Charlie, just one real quick. Did you say thehomeinspectors.com?
if I did, I apologize. I know I do have that Chicago accent, but that's normal talking. Everybody else talks weird.
So it is thehomeinspectors.com.
You be nice. That was what you said there before. So, Joey, I want to go back to this authorization and qualification stuff. And I've heard stories about real estate agents taking people on showings and getting attacked and harmed, or robbed and stuff like that. Is it possible to do an authorization or a qualification with a fake name and fake everything else?
No.
No.
Well,
Okay, good.
Is it? I have a social security number. If you're not who you say you are, then I would find out pretty quick. If you put your application in as, Joe Thomas and your credit report comes back as Marie Antoinette, that's going to be a problem.
But nowadays, there's a lot of that stuff, and I think they call it the dark web, where people can get your social security, your name, your mother's maiden name, everything.
Well, and you know, the other thing too is how can you tell if someone has a fake pre-approval at all, right? All you have is a PDF, right?
Okay.
Or a piece of paper that says a bunch of information. Can someone just print one up themselves and be like, hey, here you go? So if the realtor never calls the lender, then you may be running into someone who just made their own pre-approvals. They could go check out a house, right? I mean, is it something that I would have ever thought of before you asked me that question? No, but as I'm thinking about
Me
it,
neither.
yeah, people can, yeah, absolutely. I mean, people will do terrible things because that is not. I'm not going to say that's human nature. That's terrible.
No, there's bad people that exist in the world. It is what it is.
There's
Yeah.
bad eggs out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Let me derail this one more time.
Love it.
I was listening to a podcast, which I found fascinating. It was titled "How Sad Are the Monkeys at the Zoo?" And really, the question they were trying to answer is, are the animals that are cooped up in the zoo depressed, or do they not perceive it as it being sort of in jail, etc. Couple takeaways. One is that all of the primates at the zoo are, by and large, both on antidepressants and
Wait a minute.
they're on antidepressants and they are on birth control. Because we can't only have so many monkeys at the zoo.
Hey, are you making this up, or is this,
Charlie, I'll send you a link.
All right.
Is that takeaway number one? Takeaway number two, in Thailand, if an elephant does something bad, they don't necessarily put the elephant down. There's literally elephant jail in Thailand because elephants are.
You're not talking about me being overweight, are you?
No,
Okay.
that's you brought that up, not me. I
Sorry.
love elephants. I can show you pictures. When I was in Thailand, I got to play with elephants. Anyway, that's another tangent that I won't go down. But they literally have elephant jail. That could because the theory is because elephants are considered sacred there. They've been coexisting with the human population there for a millennium.
It's amazing.
The assumption is made that if an elephant did something bad to a person, they must have had a good reason to do it. So they don't put them down. But now there's some bad eggs in the elephant population. There are some, because they're pretty smart.
I thought all elephants go to heaven.
There are, I hope so. Except for there's a couple of stories. I'm gonna send you this podcast. It's a great episode.
All right.
About 45 minutes, and you'll find out more. But so in terms of bad eggs, there's bad eggs in the human population, there's bad eggs in the elephant population, there's bad eggs in the primate population. I reckon if here's no, oh man, tangent. Did you know right now
Your excitement is amazing.
there are orcas that are like ganging up and like capsizing boats off the coast of Portugal right now. There's like basically like orca street gangs, like running
Orca
amok.
Street Kings. I like that.
Running amok. I'm going to send you a bunch of links. You won't get any work done today. It's going to be great. So there's
You're
point
killing
being
me.
there's bad apples, and so that's what that's the explanation as to why would someone commit fraud, right?
Yeah.
The good news is that's the exception rather than the rule. Otherwise, we would have. We have enough work already. Imagine we have to fend off 1 out of 3 is a fraudster. It just wouldn't work. The commerce would grind to a halt if there was that much fraud.
But there's got to be something in the education where you want to do something, and you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself and your clients and everyone that comes with it, from those bad actors. So what can somebody do, whether we're a professional in the business or a buyer, to make sure things are going in the right direction?
Yeah, my
Or seller.
the way I feel about it is the more experience I have, the
Yeah.
more able I am to. You see the signs, right? I've had people try to dupe me in the past. I had someone send, this is the classic one, right? I was supposed to hold earnest money for this transaction, so the buyer sends me a $300,000 check, and earnest money is supposed to be like 10 grand, and they're like, just deposit the check, and then we'll deal with it afterwards. I said, well, yeah, I can't do that because it's not what the contract says, and basically my client trust account is sacred. We do not mess about with any of those funds. It's not my money, and also I'm not a bank. I'm not comfortable with that. And otherwise it was someone who was referred by a referral partner I've worked with many times in the past. And honestly, I was just like, look, if our working together, meaning me and this potential client, is contingent upon me depositing this check, I think we just have to agree that this is not a good fit, and I'll do whatever you want with the check, return it, shred it, whatever. And really, I'd never heard anything back from him. I use that check as a bookmark. It's a piece of paper, really. But and also that referral partner never heard from that person again. And the kicker is that they had FedExed me that check using a bogus FedEx number, and so I got an invoice from FedEx for like $60 for for the sending of the check and the the customs or whatever. So I ended up spending an hour on the phone with FedEx to get that charge dropped, but they kept sending me an invoice. I'm like, hey, I got frauded. Come on.
I'm on a bunch of home inspector forums as well, and I forgot the names, but there's like some guy on a battleship or an aircraft carrier. There's another Prince of Saudi or something like that, and whatever. It seems like the same name, and they call out or they text. Everything's done by text. And then, some of the guys like to mess with them. And for me, it's I block those numbers right away. Right. I don't like messing with them at all. And they brag when they get these checks from the company. Because what they'll do is they say, well, I want to buy a house. Here's the address. Can you do this? I'm going to send you more. Can you pay the, the termite guy or this guy and everything else? And then you can keep the rest for your troubles. So everybody thinks they're going to get a sweet payday out of the deal. But most of them kind of know that this is, bogus. But now, it's if they got to go ahead and fight the FedEx thing, they could actually get harmed just by messing with these people.
It was mildly aggravating, but I didn't even feel that bad about having to get with FedEx on that, because it's like I was sort of proud of myself for sussing that out. Basically, it's like this could have been so much worse if I had just been like, well, this guy, he must be wealthy, I better get in his good graces, so that when he's buying and selling loads and loads of real estate down here in Chicago, I'm on the ground floor. Nah,
there's nothing I love better when the promise of the future successes come into play.
Don't get me started.
I know, right?
I get these calls from wholesalers, and that's another topic that I won't even start to get into, because you just held up the, the we're almost done button.
We're getting towards the end and stuff like this. But, you and I come in late. Like when I talk to a client, they've already signed the agreement, and now they're starting their 5-day or sometimes 6 days, and even that doesn't get educated to or brought across to our clients all that well. Everybody hears 5-day, 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 and we're thinking right away that's calendar days, when in all reality it's business days. So here I am, the one that's saying, well, hold on a minute, you Saturday and Sunday don't count, Monday's a holiday, that doesn't count, so we don't have to do this by Tuesday, we could do this by Thursday.
Yeah, or your lawyer, ask your lawyer to request an extension. That those are routine. I can't think of an instance, knock on, whatever.
Seriously, I've been hearing a lot of people, and maybe they're just telling me that to rush me, but I've been getting a lot of clients say they won't give us an extension in this market.
Yeah, I think they're BSing you, because literally, I mean, if it needs to happen, if you need an extension, you need an extension. I mean, there's only so many inspectors with so many slots. If you 1 or 2 extra days is not that big of a deal, especially if a seller is pushing you that hard and they say, well, I'm going to drop you and go to the second one. It's like, well, you've already lost in that instance, because that's going to take even longer. So that argument doesn't work. Yeah. And if they go, well, I'm going to miss a weekend on the market, you go, do you really think that between this weekend and the next weekend there's going to be a flood of inventory and you will have missed your moment? I mean,
but isn't there a lot where they have all these backup offers now?
Yeah, but if that backup offer is, if you say, all right, sorry, no extension, hey, backup offer, you're in. Backup offer is then making their first phone call to an inspector to schedule an inspection for when? For probably after whenever you would have been able to get in. So it's a lose. So, unless the buyer, I mean, I've had, rarely you have a buyer that will ask for like a 2-week extension for some reason. And, you go, well, no, I'm not having that. Figure it out. If your guy is that busy, there are, according to Charlie, there are a handful of very competent and
There's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones too.
Sure, I'll help lead you in the right direction. I know a real good one. He's sitting right across from me.
Thank you. Which is kind and stuff like that. But Joey, you run into the clients way before we do, right? You're talking to them at the shopping stage, right?
Yeah, hopefully I'm talking to them before the shopping stage, because what are you shopping with if you're not shopping with a pre-approval, right? So, yeah.
Do you recommend any real estate agent take anybody out with the pre-qualification letter?
No, I mean, you just get a roll of Scott's toilet paper and bring that with you.
Value your time,
Absolutely.
If a client is so reluctant to get a pre-approval, that really ought to tell you something. Even if you're not busy, let's say you're new in the game and you've got a particularly difficult client who's like, well, I've got this pre-qual from, big box, and that should be good enough. And you go, well, what I would really like to do is have you just quickly run through and get a pre-approval so we know exactly how much you can shop for. If they go, I don't really feel like doing that, I think you'd be better off, instead of trying to wrangle that client to do what should be expected of them, I think you'd be better off prospecting for some people who are a little more serious about going through the process the right way.
That makes absolute sense. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, you're good. But going shopping with a pre-qualification, you're not dealing with someone who's actually serious about buying a house. That's my opinion, and should be yours.
or they want to cut corners. I mean, there's people out there who, I run into it, thankfully not too often, but you certainly run into people who they want the shortest between point A and point B. And if they can skip as many steps as possible, they will. And that's just, a certain personality type. Those people can be quite difficult to deal with. And if you have such a person as a client, you have a decision to make about, is it worth your time and effort to work with this person? I've worked with plenty of those people. You sort of figure out a way to get them to do the things that you need them to do, but it's not always the best.
No, and I could talk about this for probably another 6 more hours, but we are running out of time. So I'm going to use this last minute, if you don't mind, one more time around the horn. Patrick Loftus, how do they get hold of you?
Find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok. You'll be number 71 of my followers. If you're the next one, at Loftus Law.
And how are all those videos going about the contract?
About the contract, I think I've done 8 or 9 of them, and I'm just ticking over to page 2. So,
wow, I know there's a lot to it. Joey, how do they get hold of you if they have questions on mortgages and stuff?
Well, you can call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at @thevaloannerd.
And I want to thank everybody for listening. My name is Charlie Bellefontaine, Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. I'd like to give special thank you to Devin Tingle. He's our producer, and he just makes us sound so good. And so for that, I'm going to say thank you. And my name is Charlie, and I am out.